Ilia Topuria stood in the center of the octagon, pointed to the ground, and dared the BMF champ Max Holloway to come through hands. Max didn't take the bait, but it didn't matter. Topuria still slept him and defended the featherweight title like it was just another Saturday. Just a few fights earlier, Topuria almost got his light shut off by Jai Herbert. But Ilia dug deep, clawed his way back, and finished Herbert with a KO, more flawless than Uncle Chao's MMA record. He then eventually went on to dethrone the featherweight champ Alexander Volkanovski. Let's get to the origin story. Ilia was born in Germany to Georgian parents, but soon his family moved back to Georgia, a country where wrestling is practically a birthright. A young Topuria grew up learning how to throw people around like sacks of potatoes. But just when things started looking up, life threw a curveball. Ilia's family hit some rough times and had to move yet again. This time to Alicante, Spain.
And when you were 15, you moved to Spain. Why did you guys move to Spain?
Because of the job, you know, we were living in Georgia, and on that time in Georgia, there was a little bit of bad situation, you know, and my parents decided to move to Spain. That's why.
Imagine this poor kid, new country, doesn't speak the language, probably wondering why everything tastes like olive oil. But Topuria quickly adapted. He joined an MMA gym, he picked up Spanish in just 6 months. Meanwhile, my aunt's been grinding on Duolingo for 5 years and still thinks that grassy ass is how you say thanks. Anyway, at the age of 15, Topuria asked his dad if he could leave school to train full-time. He was like, "Dad, school's boring. I want to punch people for a living." And his dad was like,
And we tell him like, "Hey, Dad, we don't want to go to school anymore, but we really want to train. And like you tell me, you have my approval."
By 2015, at just 18 years old, Ilia made his pro MMA debut, flexing his jiu-jitsu skills with a slick triangle choke that forced Francisco Javier Asprilla to tap. But it wasn't all sunshine and triangle chokes. In 2018, Topuria missed weight by 4.4 pounds for a Cage Warriors title fight. And look, I get it. 4.4 pounds, it doesn't sound like much. But in MMA, it's basically like showing up to a swim meet wearing floaties. The fans were obviously pissed. Some guy on Twitter went, "Topuria missed weight by 4.4 pounds. That is disgraceful for his debut, which he was given a title shot." That fiasco pushed him up to featherweight, which honestly was the best decision ever because Ilia turned into an absolute powerhouse. All of Topuria's first 7 wins came by way of submission, but it was his 8th when he truly put the striking and boxing developments on display with a thunderous knockout of Steven Gonçalves. Topuria was already a wrestling prodigy, but on that night, it was like he downloaded the One Punch KO DLC for his fight kit. Topuria's knockout caught the attention of an MMA journalist, Farah Hanon, who referred to him as a super prospect, which is a fancy way of saying, yeah, this guy's probably going to rearrange some faces in the UFC. 2020 rolls around and the UFC comes knocking. On 8 days' notice, while recovering from COVID, Ilia stepped in to fight against Yosef Zalal at UFC Fight Island 5. Topuria showed up like a calm assassin, cutting off angles, shutting down Zalal's movement. He racked up 5 takedowns and dominated with over 8 minutes of control time. Ilia was tossing up submission attempts left and right. Arm triangle, anaconda, guillotine. Dude became a human vending machine for chokes. Although he didn't get the finish, the judges were like, yeah, this kid's legit, and gave him the unanimous decision. Even Aljamain Sterling tipped his hat to Ilia's slick grappling, and fans started taking notice. Topuria's grappling looked amazing. He wasn't in my radar before, but now he's my guy to keep an eye on. As impressive as this fight was, it would pale in comparison to his next fight against Damon Jackson, where Ilia delivered a striking masterclass. Ilia controlled the distance like a seasoned sniper, using feints to keep Jackson guessing and piecing him up with razor-sharp combos. It was slow, calculated pressure, and punishing body-to-head combinations, which were often capped off with a devastating overhand right. Topuria had been studying Canelo's tapes, just drilling those body shots until they became second nature. And it showed.
Like I said before, I like the Canelo style, the body shots, and I train a lot of boxing, and for this fight especially, I train a lot of boxing.
At 2:38 of the first round, the overhand right landed flush. Jackson hit the canvas hard. That knockout sent Jackson to dreamland with a VIP ticket. Topuria was becoming a lethal, well-rounded fighter capable of ending fights on the feet or on the ground. He can barely speak English and has more charisma than most other fighters on the roster. Looks like Conor, talks like Khabib. I think a new star is born. 10 fights in, Topuria was paired up against BJJ wizard Ryan Hall, a puzzle few could crack. The odds might have favored Topuria, but the Reddit crowd was convinced Hall was going to be the guy to humble Ilia. For Topuria, Hall was just another fish in the pond, waiting to be reeled in. Hall tried all his fancy Imanari roles, like he was auditioning for Cirque du Soleil, but Ilia was having none of it and made him pay with ground and pound. In the closing moments of the first round, Ilia capitalized on a failed spinning back kick, unleashing a flurry of hammer fists that left Hall out cold. The win made many believe Topuria was ready for a shot at a top 15 contender, but no one wanted a piece of this red-hot freight train, not even the UFC's favorite bowl-cut trash talker, Paddy Pimblett. This feud had roots. Back in 2021, Pimblett stirred up controversy with his comments about the 2008 Russo-Georgian War. During a heated Twitter exchange, he called Georgians stupid and said no wonder the Russians terrorized their lives. How classy. Nothing like making geopolitical insults when your cardio's sus. Ilia took those comments personally, like Jordan in The Last Dance. He wanted that fight bad, but according to Ilia's coach, Paddy didn't want the smoke. The truth is that, at that moment, there was anger because of all the history of Ilia's family members fighting in the war, so he truly wanted to fuck him up, but Paddy didn't want to fight. I don't know if it's because they wanted to take care of him or the UFC wanted to protect him, but Ilia tried to get the fight. So Topuria fought Jai Herbert instead. But since they were fighting on the same card, Paddy and Topuria came face-to-face backstage, where all hell broke loose. At UFC London in 2022, the crowd booed the crap out of Topuria, like he was the Grinch who stole their fish and chips. But Topuria didn't care. Whether they saw him as a villain or a hero, it didn't matter to him. They knew his name. Ilia stepped up a weight class on short notice to face Jai Herbert, a dangerous striker with an 8-inch reach advantage. 8 inches! That's not a reach, that's a restraining order. Everyone knew how dangerous Topuria was as the hammer, but what if he became the nail? That was answered when Herbert caught Ilia with a head kick, dropping him for the first time in his career. But Ilia used his wrestling to survive the round and came back with a vengeance in the second. At 1:07 into the round, a thunderous right hand sent Herbert crashing to the canvas, sealing the knockout and earning Topuria a Performance of the Night award.
Herbert is a nasty stand-up fighter. He's so good. And he caught Topuria with the perfect head kick. And Topuria, he's in real trouble. He got dropped. And he scrambled, got a hold of him. Next round sent him into the dark lands.
After the brutal KO of Jai Herbert, he dismantled the grappling ace Bryce Mitchell and outclassed Josh Emmett, which catapulted him to the number 5 spot in the featherweight rankings. And honestly, at that point, the featherweight division probably started a group chat like, "Who's gonna deal with this guy?" Topuria was feeling himself, and rightfully so. He straight up warned Volkanovski that his days as the champ were numbered.
Make this look easy.
You see that belt?
Yeah,
That's
I've
the
seen
last
it for
day
a while
you enjoy
now, and
that
I'll
belt.
keep seeing it.
That's the last days you are enjoying that belt.
The MMA community was leaning towards Volk to get the job done right. And according to the odds makers, things were pretty tight. With Volk, the man with 5 defenses and 3 wins against Max Holloway, just a -130 favorite. Round 1 kicked off with Volk doing what he does best, sharp, calculated striking. He fired off kicks to the body and legs, keeping Topuria at arm's length. But Topuria wasn't here to play it safe. He landed some nasty low kicks and cracked Volk with a clean right hand, forcing the champ to rethink his range. Volk stayed icy, mixing in combos and clinches with some sharp knees, but you could feel the tension. Topuria's power was a problem. Judges leaned towards Volkanovski for the opener, but it was razor close. In round 2, Volk stuck to his game plan, popping jabs and working angles, but Topuria was dialed in. He started landing hooks, overhand rights, and piling on the pressure. With Volk forced into more firefights, then came the moment. Topuria uncorked a clean right hook, a one-shot knockout that ended one of the most dominant reigns in featherweight history. Just 56 days later, Max Holloway decided to turn the octagon into a war zone against Justin Gaethje, because why not? 5th round, dying seconds, and Max gets the KO. Then, like the mad lad he is, he calls out Topuria.
There's an El Matador. He is running away from Abu at 145. Tell him sign the gun contract.
Not the one to back down from a fight, Topuria accepted the challenge to fight Max Holloway at UFC 308. Leading up to UFC 308, analysts and fighters were split. Many, including Michael Bisping, believed Topuria's momentum and well-rounded skill set would lead him to victory. Others, like Dustin Poirier, sided with Holloway, citing his experience, durability, and relentless pace as key factors. The bookmakers pegged Topuria as 2-1 favorite. But let's be real, betting against Max Holloway is like telling your grandmother you hate her cooking. It takes guts and a heart of stone. Max came out doing what Max does best: volume, movement, and precision. His jab was a constant weapon, disrupting Topuria's rhythm and keeping him at bay. Holloway's ability to mix in combinations, switching from head to the body, seemed to frustrate the champion early, but Topuria stayed calm, absorbing the pressure and landing the occasional heavy counter. In round 2, Topuria began to find his footing. While Holloway's volume was still there, the champ started timing him. A clean overhand right snapped Holloway's head back, a reminder of Topuria's devastating power. The difference in styles was clear. Max wanted to drown Topuria in punches, but Topuria was like, "One big shot, bro, that's all I need." Then in round 3, the fight turned on a dime. Topuria's patience paid off. A perfectly timed right hand staggered Holloway, a rare sight for the man often called one of the most durable fighters in UFC history. Topuria didn't waste a second. He followed up with a thunderous left hook that sent Holloway to the canvas. If that wasn't a holy shit moment, I don't know what is. Topuria became the first fighter to stop Holloway. Now people are tossing around the GOAT word. Is Topuria the new featherweight GOAT? Let's chill for a minute. Jose Aldo existed, remember? He was a whole demon in his prime. Dude was eating title defenses for breakfast. Topuria's amazing, but we need a few more title defenses before we start rewriting the history books. But hey, if Topuria keeps this up, Aldo's featherweight GOAT crown might need resizing.